Okay. All right. So we are live. Yeah. Okay, I think we're just gonna give it a few seconds, a few minutes for people to start to come on and view this live session tonight. So if any of you are like tuning in and you see our faces on Rao's profile, do understand that we are not Rao. We are today Farhan. I'm the head of marketing in Noble Sky, and I have the lovely Miss Veronique also with
Thank
us. She's a lead trainer uh, tonight to address some of the questions that maybe some of you may have about investing in the US. Right. So yeah, as we wait for more people to come on, tonight is actually a Friday night, so I suppose people are like trying to, you know, for Singapore at least, it's been second week on or phase two after the circuit breaker, and people are probably, you know, going out or they're just still staying in if they want to feel safe. So Veronica, I understand you're actually residing in Bali right now. How are things over there?
you. Yes. Well, it's been very, very quiet, and of course, everybody knows that Bali really relies on tourism, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's been a lot of challenges for people. Quite a few places are closed. The beaches are closed. We've never moved to phase two, so we're still kind of stuck in phase one. And what we noticed recently is that it's still going up a little bit, but not much. And there are worse places to be stuck at home than Bali, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I've seen some of your photos, or with the sunset and the meadows. Is that what you call it? The meadows or the paddy fields.
Oh, the
It's
rice
just
fields. I
the
have
rice
rice
field.
fields
Yeah,
just across from,
right.
yes.
That's
They,
just
they they've just been
stunning.
harvested, but we've been
Oh,
blessed
okay.
with beautiful light just recently,
That's really nice.
so it's been
Uh,
it's been nice.
yeah, actually, adding to that, Singapore has been experiencing heavy rains. I think Singapore and Malaysia as well.
Yes.
To the point we've been having flash floods. So we've had quite a number of
Oh wow.
yeah, areas in Singapore with flash floods, and of course we had quite you know, funny images as well of buses flooding. That was quite funny because the water
Oh
got into
wow.
the bus.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So it was kind of funny.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So again, as we are all getting used to the new norms around us, I think one thing which we can't ignore is still, you know, how we continue to do well financially, you know, despite all of the, you know, the doom and gloom people are talking about, people are losing their jobs and all that. Our, you know, what we really wish for everyone out there is for their well-being, you know, for them to continue to do well. And you know, what we really do in Noble Sky is really like, you know, we're offering people the opportunity to put their money in a good place so that they can continue to grow it. Yeah. So maybe
Yes.
Veronique, you want to talk a little bit about your background in the financial industry?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Of course. So I actually was a fund manager for quite a few years, more than
Right.
I care to count. And my specialty was always Asia ex Japan, so investing in growth stocks in Asia ex Japan. So for quite a while, I would travel around, see companies, and figure out what made their business successful and whether it was worth investing our clients' money in those companies. It was
Wow.
very interesting, and it also took a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And
So,
one thing that came back to me when I started training with Noble Sky was actually one of the biggest lessons that I'd ever learned as a fund manager was to be disciplined.
okay,
Right?
nice.
It's like if you fix rules, if you
Mhm.
fix the way you're going to be investing, you need to stick with it. And because when we fall in love with an investment or when we let our emotions take over, that's when we make big mistakes. And I've seen them over and over. I used to joke that I've been through about 6 market crashes in Asia. I think now I'm up to 7,
Wow.
but because they happen more often than in the US, and at the same time, really, it's the people that can stick to this discipline. And that's what I noticed when I joined my first auction with Noble Sky,
Mhm.
because we were bidding on something, and that was a really attractive house. And the minute it went over the price that we decided on it, it was done. Next. And I'm like, yep, serious. I like it.
Okay, yeah,
You
discipline.
you know about discipline anyway with your background.
Yeah, it's something that I don't really talk about very much. I think even um, when I was still working in my previous job, I think most people might not know that unless they're in my
Mm-hmm.
close circle of friends. So, and for those of you who are listening in and wondering what Veronique is talking about, actually before this, I was actually in the police force, Singapore Police Force, for a good number of years, which is 8 years.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting career for sure. I've been there. I've seen so many things that you don't get to see outside, and it's been really interesting. It's been a real blessing. But of course, this is where I'm now doing my own business, and together with Noble Sky, helping Noble Sky doing marketing campaigns and all. It is also a calling on the other side of me, you know. So I've been like always wanted to do my own business. I've always been interested in marketing and all that. So it was a matter of timing. Yeah.
And
So
it's
maybe
quite a shift, isn't it?
yeah. It's a huge
To be
shift.
in your own business and to see it as your own business and your own responsibility.
Correct, very much. Because
Yeah.
in where I was previously, my employment it was very structured. There was
Mm-hmm.
literally structure, rank
Yeah.
structure. There's a management structure. Whereas when I'm outside here on my own, there's no structure for me to work around. So yeah, I built my website, and that's really scary. And so when you mentioned about discipline, I think it's really important. And when you have to start being very aware of the time that you spend,
Mm-hmm.
where the people you hang out with, uh, the investments where you put your money in, it becomes very important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
right, right.
Absolutely. And that's something that is a shift. You know,
Yeah,
it's very different when you put your money just in the bank and wait or anything like that. But when you
yeah,
invest in you, in a way, right, as a business, it's very different. It's a different way of doing things. Much more
yeah.
active as well sometimes.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I probably end up doing more work in a day than when I was employed. Yeah, but in any
Mm-hmm.
case, back to the topic of tonight, right, Veronique? So tonight is
Yes.
about asking us anything, and what we really want to do is actually get questions from the ground. People who are watching, if there's any questions or burning questions you have in mind about investing in the US, especially in this region, in the Southeast Asian region. Most of you who are tuning in will probably be wondering, like, why do we want to even talk about US real estate when there are actually very good markets in the Asian region, for example, right? Yeah, I think before we even begin, we have already a question from Mr. Zainal Zikri. Uh, he has a
Yes.
question here. Veronique, I'm just going to read it out. So he says that, hi Farhan and Veronique, what is a good place to look for good rental yields for properties under $40,000? Okay, that's one point. And how can I get a loan in the US? I see a lot of land in the US cheaper than my own country, so good idea to invest in this water of land. Wow. So this is a mouthful. So Mr. Zainal has got quite a lot of questions, which are very good
A few
questions.
questions.
Yeah. So maybe Veronique maybe just may want to answer on the part about land in the US versus maybe buying a house. What in Noble Sky, in the expertise that we have, what is the difference between land and maybe buying a house?
Well, it depends what you're looking at doing with it, right? But the beauty is, first, is one of the reasons why we like investing in the US is you can buy land. Any one of us can buy land, right? You mentioned I live in Indonesia, but if I lived in Singapore or in Malaysia, it would be the same. I cannot go and buy the rice field across the from my house because I'm a foreigner. I cannot buy the land, right? But in the US, you can. And so that's something that is really interesting. So there's a lot of different things. A few years ago, we did a deal in, where was it? Sorry, one of those very rural country
Right.
where actually part of the land that we purchased on behalf of our client actually had beautiful pine trees. that we were planning on possibly transferring the growth part and actually use it to pay for construction of some lots.
Right. Okay. Okay. So.
So that's one aspect about the
Mhm.
land. But it really depends what you're looking at doing with it, because land is plentiful in the US. So as an investment, you have to think about it in terms of what return do I expect from it.
Yeah. Right. And again, I suppose the question is not, it's not just about the returns. It's about what do you need to do to put that land to good use that gives you any kind of return
Yes,
at all,
yes.
right?
So
Yeah.
there,
And
there's gradings, right? Is
yeah.
it agricultural, or is it actually buildable? Does it have a building permit? Is it possible to get all of that? Generally, we tend to focus on pieces of land that will already have a property on it, even if sometimes there's a lot of work to be done. And we do that for flipping rather than for rental. But for rental, we look for a property that needs a little bit of work, but not too much, because our goal is to make money right away for people.
Yeah, that's the one beautiful thing I like about the strategy and approach that we have in Noble Sky. And maybe I will
Yeah,
also just like to address on the part about Mr. Zainal asking about properties under 40,000. Actually,
yeah,
I'm not sure if Zainal, Mr. Zainal, if you attended any of our webinars or any of our classes, if you would understand the strategy that we have for investors, it doesn't really matter how much capital you have, even if you can be as little as maybe $10,000. There's actually a way for you to leverage on the community, where other people who has also
yeah,
a sum of money to invest, and you can actually come together and become co-owners or co-investors into a particular project or a particular investment.
yeah,
So if you want to go solo, then $40,000 may or may not get you something in the US, something that's ready for you to start renting out. Depends on the deal, depends on the area that we're looking at. But at the same
yeah,
time, again, you mentioned about loan. Yes, you can get a loan, but there are strict requirements and strict, uh, basically, it's not as easy as you doing it in your own country for sure. So that's why the strategy that we have for our investors really is not to depend on a bank loan, but to actually leverage on the community. And if this is something that you think it's worth doing, you can actually just drop us your contact number, or just send Ralph a private message, and we'll give you more details, because we, based on what we have to offer in the US, I think it's really interesting, which is the next point, which probably I'm going to ask the question to Veronique, right? Which is one of the
yeah.
questions we always get is like, what is actually the strategy in the US? How do people actually make money about it with properties in US real estate? So what gives, what's so great about the US? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's quite a few things about the US, but when we started, we were really taking advantage of a very specific set of rules that allows the counties to sell properties at auction when they're not being paid property tax. Right. So that was one thing. And that allowed us to really acquire the properties at substantial discount to the market value, sometimes even 10% of the market value. So that was the first thing that was really important with
10%.
regards to how we acquired. And one thing that Ralph likes to say, though he says he didn't coin the sentence, but we make money when we buy, not when we sell. We would never go for a property at market value.
Yeah.
Even if we're going for a property to rent out, we'll never go at market value. Because I have a background in finance and analysis, I did a fair amount of work with research, right? And we always build it in to have enough in there. We always build it in to have a big enough cushion that we would always be making money, whether it's for rental. Even for rental, we'll be looking at a discount to the actual value.
Yeah. So I get
That's
it.
one of the important things.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the major concerns people usually have, right? When they buy into properties, like,
Yes,
what if the market appreciates? Obviously, it's not going to be a problem at all. But
It's
what
a great
happens
thing.
when it depreciates? Yeah. So when it depreciates, do
Yeah.
you actually have any buffer to actually deal with that situation? Or especially in this case where Mr. Zainal is asking about a loan, right? So imagine if the valuation of the
Yes.
property goes below the amount of loan that you actually have against that property, that might spell trouble with them.
Underwater, basically.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things like that. When I used to live in Hong Kong for a while, and when I moved to Hong Kong, my first thought was, well, instead of paying those very high rents, I should buy something. So I looked into buying, and then I realized that I couldn't really afford it, even with the high rent. So I
Yeah.
thought, okay, well, then I'm going to buy a property for investment purpose, and I can rent it out. And when I looked into it, I had to come up with at least 30% in cash. So,
Mhm.
and as people know, it's quite expensive, right? I have to come up with at least 30% in cash. Then I have to get a loan from the bank. So the bank has to be playing, right? And then most likely by the end of the month, the money I receive from my tenant is not going to cover for the loan repayment. I'll have to put money every month to cover.
Mhm.
So
Right.
is it an asset or liability? And it turned out to be a liability because it was taking money out of my pocket every month. I had to put more, right?
And then
And
and that scenario, yeah, I
this
think
is
that
kind of when
scenario
I gave up.
specifically, yeah.
But in the US, because we are actually able to use, say, those 30%, that might be the only thing we pay. Everything else is free
Yeah, amazing.
if
That's
we
just
do it right.
it,
Yeah.
it, it doesn't
So,
make sense. I think that number we're talking about, like a 70% below market value, it just doesn't make sense to most people,
mhm,
and that
yeah,
is really why we have done for the past good 5-6 years since the company existed, is really to educate um, the market, educate the
yes.
audience that there
Yeah.
are actually such opportunities. Right?
And the other thing with that is relevant to note when if you were to compare it with Asia, or at least Hong Kong or Singapore, is the average property price is less than $300,000.
Yeah, yeah, for a really
You know,
nice
in Hong Kong, my
property.
a million US dollars will get me a 1-bedroom apartment.
Right. Okay. A shoebox, they call it.
Pretty much, yes,
A,
yes.
a
In French
shoebox.
too, they call it a shoebox as well.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. So, Veronique, very nice conversation we've been having. Maybe we'd like just to see whether anyone else has got questions for us about
Yes,
investing in the
absolutely.
US. Yeah. You may be from wherever you are. Maybe we just want to let you know that it doesn't matter where you're tuning in from, because actually anyone from anywhere can be buying properties in the US, and
Yes,
the
pretty much.
strategy is something that we have basically come up with for investors who want to have access to US properties.
Yeah,
And they might think it's something complicated, something complex. They need to sign a whole lot of paperwork and probably fly in over and get everything set up before they can get started. One of the
yes.
why
Well,
when
that's
I
what Ralph
came
used
into
to do.
yeah. So when I first got into investing in the US myself, through Noble Sky, of course, for those who do not know me, I actually came in as an investor first. I didn't straight away start to work with Noble Sky. So I came in as an investor first, and what attracted me really was the ease of getting access to US properties. Yeah, and it was just
Yes.
as it was crazy simple, because everything was just done over the internet. It was registered. My business entity under my name was actually registered in the state of Wyoming, and I didn't have to lift a finger except for signing some agreements with the company, and otherwise
Yep.
I had a fully owned property under my name, which allowed me to actually then buy properties. And yeah, that was just simply amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yeah.
do 99.9% of the work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, except for signing the paper.
Right.
So,
Okay.
if we do not have a question right now, there's
Right.
one thing that I'd like to talk about real briefly, is because there was a question about mortgage.
Mhm.
It is possible to get a loan in the US for some properties, but as a foreigner, it is not as easy, and it is nowhere as cheap as what you read. It's like people are saying, oh, the US 0% interest rate, everything like that. Yes, potentially, but even then, with that, the normal mortgage rate is about 3 to 3.5%. But as a foreigner or as a foreign entity, it's a slightly different ball game, and it's closer to 8. So just for information purposes. Of course, if you're a foreigner somewhere, you're never treated the same way as a local.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think
so
that's
something to keep in mind.
Yeah, about mortgages, right? But then again, as much as we don't encourage mortgages, but I think there is a strategy as well where we actually leverage using bank loans, where we can, when you want to talk about buying into your second, third, fourth, fifth property in the US, there are strategies as well where you can leverage using the bank loans. Again, if you are a client with Noble Sky, we will give you the specific insider information for sure on how you can actually expand your portfolio, getting into your second, third, and fourth property. And Veronique, actually, I've just been messaged on the side. Mr. Zainal, who was asking a question, he is still actually a client with Noble Sky. Yeah.
Already. Oh, well, there you go.
Right. Yeah, very nice to have him.
Maybe we can increase maybe his portfolio can be increased with rental properties.
Yeah, I think that's why he's asking.
Yeah. The rental is interesting because we're actually we launched rental, and then we've been preparing to launch an Airbnb near you saw property for real just before it was. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Mm-hmm. The Airbnb project.
Yes, the Airbnb project.
The one at, I think, Don Blush.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big house.
That's a very interesting house, and we have actually. Too bad we don't have any of the screenshots to share with the audience right now, but that was shared during our webinar a few days ago about when we did a test market with Airbnb and that property, and for 3 nights or 4 nights you can actually be doing about 1,000, 1,200 worth of Airbnb rental income. Yeah, so that was amazing. So imagine if you were to rent out maybe just 10 nights out of 30, you're already talking about probably 3,000 to 4,000 worth of Airbnb income.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are saying they don't want to do Airbnb because there's so much work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
right?
the work.
And and then we have a specialist of Airbnb anyway, right? That's helping with it. So.
Right. Yeah. So we do.
And then otherwise.
Yeah.
Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My internet is funny, so I think we have a bit of a delay.
Right. It's okay. Time difference. Bali and Singapore is 1 hour, so we're catching up with each other.
No time difference. Just
no. Oh yeah, Bali.
Technology difference.
Technology difference. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Veronique. You were saying.
So no, I was saying in terms of the rental portfolio, the other thing that we're looking at is just houses, right? Because there's more and more of a movement of people towards more suburbs, single family homes, and we're of course on behalf of our investors will be looking for renter friendly not renter. French language. I apologize. Landlord friendly states. Right. So we're looking at Florida still. Florida is a good state. Georgia, Texas, and a few others like this. Arizona might be on the list sometime soon as well, but we'll see.
I think the market is also evolving. As much as the whole COVID situation is going on, but I think there's still a lot of domestic demand for rental and also for Airbnb. So it's just a matter of how much data we have to find this uncovered or rather these gems that actually are around out there. Actually, there's a lot of these good properties out there that we can actually get access to just a question of what type of preference you have as someone who want to invest in the US. So that's what we'll work with clients. Yeah.
Gem hunting.
Yeah, gem hunting. That's nice. Yeah, actually, I had one of the question which this one very frequently that we have really is asking about the money, right? I think it's when it comes to investment, people are always asking about what type of returns can I get, or about firstly, how much money do I need to get started with, and what kind of returns can I get? And that is the $1 million question. I think everybody wants to know that because they want to make a almost, for some people, they may be considering to put what may be their life savings in there, right? So of course it's a big decision, so they want to know like whether it's something safe, whether it's something to consider. And maybe Veronique, you may just want to give us a little bit of an overview of how, or what type of returns really, if we were to talk about buying properties in the US as an investment or as a business, what can people reasonably expect?
Yes. Yeah. Well, so there's two different things, right? And we have two different products. The first one is Sky Flip, where we actually flip the houses. And I'm sure some of you have seen those flipping shows on TV, right? But you buy, you rehab, you fix, you make it look nice and everything, and then you sell. So that's called flipping. And for flipping, the minimum we target in our research is a 30% return between the price that we could sell it for, which we always go for conservatively. And so that's part of what we look at when we invest, is we look at the entire area. What sold? What is for sale? Is it sellable? Is there demand or not? If there's not, we're not going to buy there, because of course we want to make sure that we get the fastest and the highest return for our clients. So that's 30% minimum. And for rental, we're a bit more conservative. We're looking for a minimum of 10% yield return. And to be honest, we've achieved much higher, but that's a minimum.
Yeah. So actually for
that's kind of
me, I think rental has always been something interesting. I think is as people, we generally like the whole idea of like being a landlord and being able to have what we call passive income, right? You just buy into a property that continues to produce income for you. And with the scenario that you gave earlier about whether it's going to be a positive income or actually a negative one, where money gets out of your pocket instead having to pay for mortgages, versus those that gets you to positive income. I think that makes a lot of difference. I think the position that in the US that allows you to do is really be able to get into a positive cash flow pretty quickly, and yeah, I think that's just amazing.
That's really important. Positive cash flow is capital. So
yeah, I see Fraser.
That's the idea.
I see Fraser's question talking about companies allowing workers to work out of home, and we're seeing the shift of people moving away from the high density mega cities to the suburbs. Cost of living are cheaper, and people are more aware of social distancing. Yeah, I think that's a good observation, Fraser, because and this is where we are actually looking at in terms of opportunities. These are areas where we have always targeted, and we somewhat knew there will always be sort of like evergreen demand for properties over here. And no matter how the market condition is, the economy is, people will still always need a roof over their heads. And I think now more than ever, the opportunity it's wide open. It's for people to just go in. Yeah.
And the other important thing that you say, people will always need a roof over their head. We're not in the luxury market, right? And even it's quite rare for us to find anything in California because it's so expensive, and that we cannot make the type of return that we're looking for. So the kind of things that we're going for, it's average people, right? And there's always going to be demand. Even if having lived in a small unit, you think, well, I'm going to be working from home and I really need my own space, right? It's still average. It's not super expensive. One of the recent properties that we purchased, the properties around are selling for $100,000. So it's not huge amount of money. It's not small for anybody that's looking to buy, but it's still not a huge amount of money. So something to keep in mind as well. We're not in the luxury market in any way, shape, or form.
Maybe not yet. Maybe if the economy turns.
Maybe not yet. Well,
yeah.
we've got something under construction that might be
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
luxurious. We'll see.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. That one probably too early to reveal right now to people out there, but yeah, we have something. Yeah, we wait for it. That one is very interesting for those who are like really want to go upscale, really want to go for the luxury ones. There are many, and yeah, we will be rolling that out, and we'll be revealing that later. I'm just trying to prevent myself from revealing too much.
From saying it.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have to get off before you say anything more.
Okay. The other question we got, I think really about, I think people don't quite understand the concept of how we do things really. I think we've although mentioned this many times, because to them it's like, it sounds like a lot of work, or because we start them out starting from a business entity in the US. So to them it's like, do I really have to be running a business in the US? How do I even do that? Because I'm staying so far away from the US. Am I supposed to look at this as a business, or am I supposed to look at this as an investment? I don't have time to do any of this, and obviously I don't have the means or the resources on the ground to actually run a business in the US. So what's your take on that, Veronique?
Well, really, the biggest reason why we structure everything this way is for tax purposes.
All right, nice.
Right. We want to make sure that, and tax and liabilities. So we really want to make sure that we optimize what is going on for the clients. But the beauty of it is, because this is something that we do day in, day out, they don't really have to do anything with it.
Yeah. So we do the work for them.
We do all the work, right? That's what I said earlier. We do all the work. And it is, though, a little of a shift in mindset when you go from just being a passive investor and actually understanding that, yes, you are a passive investor in your own company. So you're in charge.
Yeah, I think that's very important, because I think maybe some people may misunderstand that they are actually investing in Noble Sky as a company, and then we do the investment for them. Actually, that's not the case. Just to clear the air right now, you are actually, what we do for investors is actually setting up for them a business entity under your name, where you are the full owner of that entity. So we only we are only given the authority to act on your behalf, but we don't own the businesses. We don't own these assets that are acquired for you.
Yes. And we don't have a portfolio of properties to sell to people. And we once the client is ready, we will find the right property. So that's one thing. And there was one more thing that just popped into my mind when you say that, and it ran away on little feet. But we don't have a portfolio, and we will seek at the time. We're not going to be holding. Oh yes, the second thing I wanted to say: we're not realtors.
Oh yeah.
We use realtors. We have realtor partners in the US, but we are not realtors ourselves.
Yeah. So we don't have that.
And one last thing about realtors that horrified me. That's one thing you just want to tell people in advance. The realtor commission in the US is 6%. So that is always something that we have to build in all our calculations. That's really important.
Yeah.
But if you do it yourself, it ends up being very expensive, which is why people come to us as well, because we know how to do it. We know who to talk to.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of leveraging on a community of investors that we got. I don't know whether you want to call it critical mass. We've got enough mass for us to bargain down fees and prices on the ground, as opposed to just doing single projects. Yeah, so I think that's a lot. That's really great for investors. Okay, and anyway, what I'm looking at the time is about almost 35 minutes since we went on. Time yeah, we flew past by. And so I think we being a Friday night and all, I think people may want to enjoy their episodes on Netflix, catching up on maybe on the news in Singapore. You know, it's really hot right now. It's the GE season has just started, and you know, a lot of people are tuning in and trying to see what are the fate of Singaporeans in the next, you know, in the next 5 years until the next GE, right? So it's a critical time for Singaporeans.
Okay, yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yes.
Yeah.
So what? But
All right.
this, yeah, I don't wish to just end the conversation here. What we really want to be able to do is, for those of you who still have questions, if you're watching a recording of this video and you still have questions that's, you know, really bugging you about US properties, just drop us a message in this video as well, under in the comments. We will see it, and we will actually address those later. Okay, and yeah, actually, if you have questions and all that, just go ahead and put it down in the comments, and we will get back to you those. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe yeah, Veronique, you wanted to say something? Yeah.
I was just going to say also, if you are interested in finding out more exactly about how we do it, join the webinar on Sunday at
Ah,
11
yeah,
a.m.
yeah. Oh yeah, I saw the link here just being displayed.
Right there, yes.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
Sunday, 11
absolutely.
a.m. It's 11 a.m. Singapore time. For those of you probably tuning in from Indonesia, apart from Bali, it's 1 hour behind, so it'll be 10 a.m.
Yes,
And
10 a.m. from Jakarta.
okay, Veronique, we have one question which just came in actually from a Facebook user. I think this we don't know the name, but the question is simple. It's asking how,
Register, but that's
yeah, how or what do we need to do if we had to exit with the investment if the investor need the money just in case. Uh, okay, so Veronique, maybe you just want to take this one for a moment. Yeah.
okay. Well, it's on a case by case basis, but we will always do our very best to help the investor. And there might be a case where you would not maybe do 30%, depending on the timing of it. But because we have access to a pool of investors and that we help our investors joint venture with each other, there we will do whatever it takes to help the client get their investments.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I think
case by case, of course.
yeah, case by case. Because although this hasn't happened much at all in the time of Noble Sky with our clients, but I think it is important to understand that buying a property means you're actually buying into a hard asset. It's not as liquid as you want it to be, but there's a lot of value
Yeah.
there. So obviously, if you
Yes.
are a client with Noble Sky, we will do whatever is necessary to help you out. There are clauses in the agreements that you have between yourself as the client and the company as a service provider to actually for us to
Mhm.
give you options on how you can actually seek out this type of situation. So it's not an
Yes.
impossible situation for sure. It's something that we can do. Of course, but then again, as Veronique mentioned, when you need to exit earlier than intended, we can't be sure exactly at that point in time whether the returns are going to be what we expect it to be in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But we will always do our best by our
Yeah,
clients, right? So
for sure. Right. Okay, so back to where we were,
for sure.
38 minutes, Friday night. Let's probably, if there's no new questions, maybe Ronnie, you just want to share with us
Yeah.
before we end this, any last words about, investing or about anything at all about situation in Bali, what you're going to be doing tonight.
Well, what I'm going to be doing tonight is prepare for tomorrow's class.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just going to share one thing, and some of you may know that I have the privilege of being one of Tony Robbins' trainers, and he has this expression where he says, "Where emotions are high, intellect is low." So, and it's the same thing when we think about investment, when we are fearful or where we're super excited, we can sometimes kind of lose track of thinking, right? So the critical thinking is important, but that's also one of the reasons why it's really useful to have other people that you can listen to.
Mhm. Right.
So that's what I would like to share.
Right. Just as we were about to leave, we have a question from Kenneth. So we'll take last question from Kenneth, and before we actually end the call. So Kenneth is just asking, how is COVID impacting property in US rental and prices? So actually the data, Kenneth, as what it has shown, a lot of us were actually expecting wild swings, maybe, or major dip in the market. But Veronique, I know you've done a lot of research on this. Maybe you just want to share with us a little bit on the numbers, what impact we have seen when COVID came into the picture.
Well, for the moment, everything is kind of stuck anyway. So there's really no transactions. There are no auctions. Pretty much everything is kind of in a moratorium period. So, of course, as an asset, it's an asset where the prices will go up and down much slower than they would for shares, right? So you don't get wild swings. It is kind of anybody's guess. What we have noticed is that in the areas we're interested in, there are still transactions regularly, all the time. There are still transactions. I was talking to a realtor friend this week, actually, who had her own properties as well and just rented them out just now. She says, we have not noticed a really big difference in our activity. So there's still demand. That's the first thing that's really important. There's still demand. There's not a lot of supply. What's happened in the past few weeks, or actually past few months now, is a lot of the things that were offered for sale were withdrawn.
Yeah.
So at the moment, that's kind of holding the market relatively stable. People are saying, when I listen to a lot of economy and everything, and people are saying, oh, it's going to go down. But here's the truth. Even if it goes down 10, 20%, we still bought at such a cheaper level that we would never, or we would be very unlikely to be losing money. So that's something to keep in mind. The second thing is, I also learned that as a fund manager, timing the market is dangerous, right? So if you believe that the economy will come back, because it will, right? Just putting in money on a regular basis and investing is actually probably one of the best ways to do it. I expect that the market will see a dip, but of course, the $1 million question literally is, how big is the dip going to be?
Yeah. All right.
And
so
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, nobody really knows. So I think we always go back to the fundamentals. In our case, where we buy, we got to make sure we buy it way below market value, so we have that buffer and that equity to actually put your properties in a much secure financial position, even if there are shocks like this. And I think the reality is, most of the properties that we already have in hand for our clients, they haven't been, majorly impacted by COVID because of that buffer in the first place. Yeah. Okay, so Kenneth, I hope we have answered your question. So with that, I think Veronique, before it goes into 11 p.m. let's end it here. Yeah. So, but it's been really fun. It's been really enjoyable having myself and Veronique being able to address the audience here. Yeah.
Let's kick out Ralph a bit more often so we can come back and play.
Yeah, probably he needs a bit of a break as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so with that, I'm gonna end this call right now. So really good night. Have a great Friday night to everyone out there. Stay safe. Still, the virus is still out there. In some places, it's still on the rise. So do what is necessary to keep yourself, your family safe, and I wish you all the best. Let's keep the conversation about investments in general, and also US properties going. We are here for you. I think we've been around for 6 years, and we hope to be around for much longer time.
Yeah, absolutely. And good night to everybody.
Yes. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.